What do CEOs need to know about sales these days? A lot. Outdated sales strategies and tactics plague most companies today. Listen to what innovative CEOs and experts have to say about how to change all that with Sales Talk for CEOs. Welcome to Sales Talk for CEOs. Today's our expert series. I'm Alice Hyman, your host. And you've heard me say, I don't know how many times, if you listen to this podcast, that you're doing sales the hard way. Why? Why do we have to do it the hard way? There are easier ways. And if you have the data, which I know you all have, but if you use it properly, you can really make some changes in your sales organization to meet the customer's needs and make sales so much easier. And so that's why today I'm bringing on my good friend, and I won't even say how long I've known him because it will give away both of our ages. It's been a long, long time. My good friend, Barry Trailer with Sales Mastery Advisors. Welcome, Barry.
Hi, Alice. Good to be here.
Well,
Finally.
And I'm so excited.
As long as we've known each other, finally.
We're gonna dive in today to some of the amazing things that you're doing, and especially with your Sales Performance Scorecard survey that's going out right now as we speak, and talk about those results. But I want to start with something that you and I, just talk about all the time, and way back to our Miller Hyman days. Have always watched companies just simply do the hardest thing humanly possible to get sales. And then they wonder why they're failing, right? So let's dive in there. Tell me, what is the easiest way to get more business?
Well, I think everybody knows the easiest way is repeat business. And the second easiest way is probably referral business. So, I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. We have a number of videos we've put up just, trying to share knowledge on our website. And one of them is the easiest to the hardest sale. The easiest sale is an existing product to an existing customer and an existing rep in an existing territory.
All right, pause there for a second. So everybody out there listening, all of you CEOs who are wondering why sales isn't exactly where you want it to be, why it's a struggle, why your salespeople are complaining, all those sales leaders are complaining, can't hit their number. So do you have existing reps, right? They're trained, they've been doing this a long time, they've been out there in existing territories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Selling to existing customers, which is repeat business, right? You can sell them more of the same or other things that you sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have that set? So really, it's actually, the first one is new, existing rep in existing territory, existing product, existing customer.
And by and large, that's happening.
Yeah.
That is happening.
Or these, everybody would be out of business, right? So most companies have that.
Right. And I'll just point out the existing rep, mostly those are senior/veteran reps who are doing that. Okay. The second easiest is an existing product, existing customer, existing rep, new territory. So we move Alice from Reno to Los Angeles, but you're still calling on many of the same accounts, selling maybe new players. But the third easiest is a new product, existing customer, existing rep, existing territory. Alice is still in Reno. You're down to sixth place before you get two news. Okay. Now, what's the hardest? New, which is where we put our.
So a new rep, brand new rep, brand new territory, brand new product, brand new customers.
Welcome to the world of SDRs and BDRs. We wonder why the burnout rate is 80%. Are
you wonder why they're failing miserably.
Well, and so there are two things about that. One, I think it's completely nuts. And two, I think it's completely uncaring in how we are, I won't even say welcoming, but at least bringing people into the profession of sales. I just think it's nuts. And I did a video on this. I just have to get it off my chest. I just think it's wrong. The other thing that I think really if we have CEOs watching this, I think this is really maybe even more to the point. Years and years ago, I took flying lessons, and the most popular airplane to learn, since we have the air races going on in Reno right now, the most popular plane to learn in is a Cessna 152.
Right.
And it's a very small airplane. Here's how small it is. My left shoulder was touching the window. My right shoulder was touching Frank Kruger, my instructor's left shoulder, and his right shoulder was touching the other window. That's it.
Yeah.
And it basically had 6 gauges, compass and airspeed, whatever. There's nothing automated in that plane. Even trim you have to do manually. Okay. The Boeing 787 literally can take off, fly, and land by itself. They even had I think it was an F-22 unmanned aircraft land on an aircraft carrier. I mean, so here you have, and the guy flying the 787 has probably got, who knows, 10,000 hours and probably at least 2,000 in type in a 787. Okay. So here am I, the guy's got nothing, getting no help. And here's the guy who's got everything, getting all the help. But if you took me as a student pilot and put me in the cockpit of a 787, I couldn't even turn the lights on. I mean, be totally lost. And here we are, we're taking our 10,000 hour sales reps, calling on existing accounts, the guys, the men and women who have the experience, have the networks, have the stories, have the staying power, have everything that allows you, that sustains you through the tough times. And they're generally doing the easiest sales. And the people who've got none of that, like me in the airplane, are just like crash and burn. It's just, I don't get it.
Yeah. It's interesting. And, when I go into companies to try to figure out what's happening and how they can increase their sales, most of the CEOs that I work with want to exit eventually somewhere in the 3 to 10 year range. And they need the sales to be up profitably, right? So that their EBITDA is good and their valuation is high so they can get what they want for their company. But their sales are flat or, even dropping sometimes
Sure.
because they think, well, things have changed, obviously, right? They're not using the data that they have. So they're relying on what they knew in the past and continuing doing sales that way versus taking the new data and using that to make the changes. Now, we all know that so many things have happened since COVID, but the world of sales was changing even before that because the customer's behavior was changing, right? And
Sure.
then we got away with not meeting the customers where they were for a while. But then it became painfully obvious during COVID when we couldn't, fly in and take them to expensive dinners and ball games and do all these crazy things, that a lot of the senior sellers do that we know. We had to rely on actual real selling skills at that point, and it became painfully obvious that those skills were lacking and not meeting the customer where they were because we couldn't rely on our buddy friendships to get these deals closed. We had to rely on actual selling skills. So I think that the data now shows us sellers are different, buyers are different. We've got this younger crowd coming into sales, and it's also showing us that the tools are different and people are struggling with them. And we're going to get to all that with the survey that you did because I think it's so important. But let's not lose sight of the fact that you need to make sure you're doing sales the easy way, not the hardest way. And take your existing team sometimes, take a look at it and think, if I rearrange these players a little bit, if I put them into teams, if I let them help each other, if I did this differently, would sales improve? If I put my best salespeople on the harder sales and the less skilled people on calling existing customers who already know us and love us, what would happen? So I want everybody out there to be really thinking like that. But go ahead.
There are 2 things you said, both of which I want to comment on before we get into the data or anything else.
Yeah.
One is there was a maxim that I heard really so long, even before I met you. This is how long ago it was.
Oh my gosh.
But and I'm not wanting to contradict or contravene what you said, but I'll trot it out anyway. Sales is the highest paid hard work and the lowest paid easy work you can find. Okay. And I mean that. Okay. That doesn't mean I think you should do it the hard way, but it does mean that I think you should do the hard work. And I just did a video on this recently. I think one of the problems today is the new people don't know what doing the work means. You got to do the work. But a
Right.
lot of people don't know what that means. And if they've been through Miller Heiman, since we spent half our lives there, it means identifying all the buying influences, their modes, their ratings, win results,
Yeah.
matched ideal customer profile. Where are they in the process? All of this stuff, that's all part of doing the work. That if people aren't being exposed to the
Yeah.
training, or the training's not being reinforced, it's not being integrated into the plan, it's just become, like jargon.
Everybody's just looking for shortcuts. Like, what's the quick way to do this? There is no quick way to do this. The way to do
Well,
this is to be a human talking to another human and learning and understanding and continuing to move forward. And there are definitely steps that need to be done and buying influences that need to be found and understood. But I think everybody's looking for some quick bullet, oh, this is the way we're just going to get new prospects, or this is the way we're going to close these deals. And there isn't anything, and there never has been anything.
Well, I think number one, the conversation about sales in general, in my view, in the last 30 years, for sure, the last 20 years has been hijacked by the solution providers. The high tech. It started with Siebel, even before Siebel, with Siebel, and then Salesforce, and now Seismic and Highspot sales, blah 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 blah. And it's unwarranted faith in the technology somehow is going to solve this. But the thing you said, everybody's looking for a shortcut. Here's another. I'll just keep trotting out all these old chestnuts. The definition of a shortcut: the longest distance between 2 points. If you've ever been out hiking and taken a shortcut, it's like, oh my God, let's just go back to where we were.
Right. Why did we do this? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's just
Oh my gosh.
everybody. That doesn't work, man. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
The other thing that you said, second point I wanted to make a few minutes ago, you said, I know you all have the data. Yes, everybody's got the data. People are drowning in data.
Yeah.
The problem is what they're looking for, what they're dying of thirst for, is actionable information.
Yes.
So I've talked about levels of relationship in the past, 5 levels of relationship, but there are 5 levels of understanding. The lowest level is data. One
Yeah.
level up is information. People have actually looked at the data. Someone or something has looked at the data and come up with, a hypothesis or some speculation about what the data is trying to say. And then there's understanding, knowledge, and wisdom. And we're still mucking around here. I mean, I think with Jim and I, our tagline is we've seen a lot. And one, Jason Jordan, I don't know if you know JJ or
Yeah,
not.
I do.
He said,
Yeah.
why don't you just admit it? You've seen everything. And I said, people keep surprising us, but we have seen a lot. And what we see is people just mucking around in the data. And, we think we're bringing sales wisdom to the table, but for God's sake, could we up this a level or two?
Yeah.
What is the data trying to tell us?
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
people don't, they collect it. They just don't
But
look
then
at
they
it.
don't right, they don't use it, they don't know what to do with it. Well, you've spent your entire career working with sales leaders to help them get the results that their CEOs want, right? And so, currently with Sales Mastery, you're working with CROs and CSOs and the leaders of the sales team at the companies, large and small, right? So they may only have the VP title, but they're leading sales, and you're working with them to help them, you know, take sales to the next level, to have peak performing teams. And so I know that when you first get in, just like I do, you see they're not using the data that they have. It's just like laying there in plain sight sometimes, and they're not using it. But knowing that they can use that to improve, I know you guys have developed this sales performance scorecard, and I actually
Mhm,
took the assessment recently, and I know it's in progress, and you've had about 400 sales leaders take it so
mhm.
far. But let's talk about what you're finding there and what's actionable, right? So let's talk about some of the kinds of things you're measuring. What are you asking these sales leaders? And then let's get into, all right, now this is the results we've heard. What can we do about it?
Sure. So Jim and I started CSO Insights, Chief Sales Officer Insights, back in 2003. In fact, this year is our 20th anniversary report
Wow.
coming out the end of Q3. And if this is airing in October, the report will be out. Anybody who takes the survey will be able to get the study immediately.
Great.
So there are a number of sections. We look at demographics. So size of the organization, where are they located, what industry are they in, and then we ask about things like revenue plan attainment, percentage of reps meeting, beating quota, and so on. We look at sales process, lead generation and lead conversion, technology, and the last 5 years, we've also been surveying on artificial intelligence for sales. And so, that's a topic we we haven't even talked about, but oh my God, the new bright shiny object. And we have plenty to say about that as well. Again, with data, and I'll just put in our own plug here. We're big believers of Edwards Deming, who was the father of the quality movement, who said, without data, you're just another guy with an opinion. And so we have data, we have opinions, but we back them up with data. In any event, what's the data telling us? And, it's not great. 2022 was tough. We are gathering the data right now. And so we started a couple months ago. And it started with the 2022 performance. How did you do? Revenue attainment, quota attainment, so on. And then looked at Q1 of 2023. And 2022, I'll just trot out a few numbers here to give. In terms of overall, 86.5% was the revenue plan attainment. So people less than 90%, 86.5% of plan attainment, and 53% of reps meeting or beating quota. That is very low.
That's abysmal.
The lowest we ever saw was 51%, but 86.5%, that's getting close to the lowest we ever saw in revenue attainment. I think 85% was the lowest we ever saw in overall revenue attainment. So it's not good. And then we asked, okay, for 2023, how did you do in Q1? I have to look, I haven't memorized these numbers, but in terms of plan attainment, 29% said less than they were behind 2022's run rate. About half, 48%, said they were running even with 2022, and 23% said, we're ahead of last year.
Well,
I think a lot of people,
at least somewhere ahead.
Somewhere. I think a lot of people thought after 2022, oh my God, 2022, is anybody ever going to win? I think everybody came into 2023 thinking, yes, now we're off to the races. And it just hasn't happened. And I was sitting in a session earlier this week with Joe Fuller from Harvard Business School. And he was describing normally what you see and he was talking about artificial intelligence implementation, but any new thing, so you normally see an S curve where people are testing, and then as they start to see some results, then it takes off, kind of the normal life curve, and then laggards and so on come in at the end. He said what we're seeing this time is a J curve where people get involved, interested, but they're very cautiously going after this, and it's actually very slow going, and then maybe it takes off. And I think, I've said that, we're at the end of Q3, man. And it's like people still are not waking up from their coma on this thing. I mean, I can't even, well, I can tell you, I won't tell you how much business was postponed. We're going in a different direction. We're pausing it, or they simply lost their budget.
Wow.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
All right. So what were some of the key things that you you asked people to tell you on the assessment that really hit you and you were like, wow, this is a big difference? And it occurred to you that there is something that can be done about it. So let's talk through a few of those.
Well, so a thing that we were kind of famous for at CSO Insights, we came up in 2007 with what we called the SRP matrix, the sales relationship process matrix. I'm laughing because in the early 90s, I defined 5 levels of relationship: vendor, preferred supplier, consultant, contributor, and ultimately partner or trusted advisor. And so that was in like 93. And Jim wrote an article for Forbes in 2000 on 4 levels of process implementation. It only took us to 2007 to figure out we could combine those in a matrix.
Well,
But
at
we
least you
did.
figured it out.
We did. And so we did collect data starting looking back at 2006 and moving forward. And for the next 10 years, and we got acquired by Miller Hyman Group in 2015, and continuing, so I can now say for 17 years, the data has stood up that as you move higher in level of relationship and or higher in level of process implementation, you do better. And in
Right.
answer to your earlier question, it gets easier. And I've got some numbers I'll trot out for you on that. When we were acquired, the SRP went off with the rest of our IP. But as you said, things have changed, and we felt that we needed to update that. And so late last year, it was in the November, December issue of the Harvard Business Review, we introduced the Sales Performance Scorecard. And we updated, really redefined levels of relationship. So it's now transactional vendor, preferred supplier, solutions consultant, strategic collaborator, and trusted co-creator. Okay, so those are different. Those are different. And on the process scale, we had random, informal, formal, and then we had dynamic. We changed that to agile, and we added a 5th level, customized, which reflects AI and machine learning being implemented. And now we've gathered data on that basis for 2 years. And the same deal, as you move up and over, it gets better. So how much better? A lot of the data that we collect, number one, it's all self-reported. And number 2, it's people giving their best guess or their best impression. They don't have all of this stuff. But when you have, several hundred responses, the data normalizes and it's what they call directionally correct and so on.
Right.
But for the SRP initially, and now with the SPS, the Sales Performance Scorecard, we're not guessing. It's based on 5 metrics that everybody keeps. So what was your percentage of revenue plan attained? What percentage of your reps met or exceeded quota? What was the outcome of forecast deals, won, lost, or no decision? And what was your turnover, voluntary and involuntary turnover? Those are the things that we measure. Everybody measures. They don't have to guess at those. They know those numbers. So we defined early on 3 levels of performance, and I have some graphics I could go over with you, but I'll just talk generally about it. We've defined 3 levels.
We can put any of that you want into the show notes,
Sure.
anything you'd like
Charlie
to share.
mentioned that we could add some of this. It's interesting to watch how these have shifted over time. But let me just say, level 1 is the lower left-hand corner of the matrix. So low levels of process and low levels of relationship. Level 2 is sort of the mid-range, what you'd expect on a matrix. Medium levels of process and relationship. And then the highest level, or the upper right, would be higher levels of process implementation, starting to use AI, and higher levels of relationship. Okay, so here are the numbers. Level 1, percentage of reps meeting or beating quota, 45%.
All right, so let's repeat that's already that lower level is
Percentage of reps meeting
percent,
or beating quota,
and
45%.
that box had low process or no process, right?
Very low levels of process. They can look at the graphic and they'll see which cells fall into which
Okay.
area. But I think there are 6 cells, the lower left 6 hand cells of the matrix are level 1. The middle 8 cells are level 2, and the upper 9 cells, so 9, 8, 6, 23. That's correct. So that would be 23 in a 5x5 matrix. And there are 2 no-fly zones, we call. We don't see anybody operating in a random fashion that has trusted co-creator
Right.
level relationships. Now that can happen, like in your company, where
Yes.
you're the company, you have personal relationships. If you operate in a random way, or you're not strictly process driven, you can still have high level relationships
Yeah.
because it's a boutique kind of thing. But we don't see sales organizations with 20 and above that get away with that. And
I agree. I would
similarly,
say it.
uh, the other no-fly zone is customized level 1. We don't see anybody that has implemented AI or machine learning, or at least very high levels of process implementation, that aren't at least at the preferred supplier level. There's sort of this aerodynamic uplift. If you've gotten that far, you've gotten enough speed to get you over the fence at the end of the runway. So and again, the graphic will be in there for people to refer to. The mid-range, 55% of reps met or exceeded, and at the high level, 61%. That's a pretty big swing.
Significant. Yeah, that's
16
significant.
points. That's 33% higher. That's a
Right.
big deal.
Yeah.
And particularly when you look at the average across all 400 was 53%. Those level 3s are at 61.
Yeah.
Big medicine.
So what's actionable there is that any company can put some process in, right? Any company can take a look at what are the salespeople doing, and in smaller companies, it's true a lot, but I see it in humongous companies, and I know you do too, Barry, where each salesperson is sort of doing their own thing, and it is random, and so the results just become random, which means they're less, right? You get less results. So,
Not necessarily,
oh, okay.
but uh, there's I'll trot out another chestnut. You can definitely do it, but you can't do it indefinitely.
Yes.
You can get away with random process. We have never said, and we still say, operating in a random way does not mean you're unsuccessful.
Right.
It means you're unpredictable.
Yes.
So when things are going well, like when we came out of the pandemic and there was all this
Right.
pent up demand, it's like, hey, we're happening. It's happening here. And then when the phone stopped ringing and the leads stopped coming in and people start sitting on their wallets again, all of a sudden it gets real quiet. Nobody knows what to do.
Right.
And
And what everybody
uh,
wants is predictable revenue, right?
right,
And so being random doesn't give you predictability. And
correct.
therefore, when you put, some sequencing in and some structure in, you become more predictable. So I would
Yeah.
say to fix that, those people down in the 50%, they're going to have to be less random and more structured in
The
their
other thing you said that I totally agree with is you can't really, I mean, there are things you can do, adding, and I just did a video on this, adding value and creating differentiation and so on to move up through levels of relationship. But there's another party involved there. And, buyers have gotten better at buying faster than sellers have gotten better at selling.
Oh, yeah.
But
100%.
what you do have control over is how much process you implement. That's all on you. That's in your court. And anybody who's just saying, well, we hire good people and we give them good tools and we get out of their way, that's just benign neglect. That's crap.
Right.
That's just wrong.
Yeah.
And
I
people who
agree.
think, and people who then buy all these tools, all these silver bullets that we're loading their ammo belt with, and then turn the SDRs and BDRs loose. It's like, I'm
It's
going
yeah,
out
just a
winning.
free it's a free for all. It's an
It's simple.
absolute free for all. And honestly, I mean, I cannot tell you how many sellers I talk to, their leaders are telling me, well, we've provided all of this, and, la, la, la. We have all these tools. Great. Let me talk to your sellers real quick. Okay. How many people are using this tool? Well, I sort of use it. I don't know. I never really got the hang of it. I don't think, okay, great. All right. What about this tool? Yeah, no, no. One person's like, "Oh yeah, I love that tool. I love that tool." The rest of them, are like, I don't know, I don't know. And I'm talking smaller sales teams. They're under 25 people, but still, I think if I surveyed the larger ones, I would too. And a
Would
company that
be
I
exactly the same.
I worked with recently, a friend of mine, just to help her out at a $5 billion company in technology that shall remain nameless. Um,
For
I
obvious
said,
reasons.
"Well, what's the user adoption on Salesforce?" And they were like, "Oh, well, we don't really require it." I go, "Well, how are you guys pulling a forecast?" "Hmm. Oh, every sales leader just kind of does it their own way." And I'm like, "Wow, is it accurate?" Well, no, our senior leader takes and does all these machinations with it to come up with something, to keep the investors happy. Oh, I see. And I'm thinking, how much time are we wasting here? You gave them a tool. You decided for some reason that tool was a good tool to use. Teach them how to use it, because it will give them some efficiencies if they use it properly, right? But misused, it's just useless. And oh my gosh, I mean, $5 billion company who implements Salesforce, and then their salespeople, they kind of use it. If it's up to them, we don't really enforce. And then we go through craziness to get a forecast.
So I did a presentation at Virtual Summit last year, late last year, about this time last year, actually. And we were looking at the 2021 data and what was going on in 2022. And there were four things that absolutely elevated and accelerated companies' sales success. And they were being process oriented,
Yes.
coaching,
Yes.
and training, basic sales training, and training on their technology.
Yeah.
Those were the four.
Just repeat those because it's so important. There's just four things that will make you more successful. Go, Barry.
And there are things that go subset, which I'll talk about, but process oriented, coaching, that's the one I want to come back to, coaching, and training their people, basic sales training. So they've been exposed, but reinforcing, having training, and training on the technology. So you bought the technology. How about we go ahead and teach people how to use it? And so
Yeah. And let me just say one thing about that. You don't give them, drinking through a fire hose training and then
right.
expect them to be able to use it. Yes, you give them, the basics, let them use it for a while, then you go back and you retrain on the basics and you add some features, and then you go back and you check and see if they've got the basics, and then you add some things, and it is ongoing. There is no such thing. And this is what when sales leaders tell me this, I want to rip my hair out. Well, we trained them on that. Yeah, really? When and how much? Did you
Yeah, well,
repeat
you were
any
at
of that?
SaaStr.
Review any of that? No.
You were at SaaStr, and all of these are cloud based. Because they're cloud based, you can turn stuff on and off.
Yeah.
You don't have to give them everything. Doesn't have to
All at
be a
once.
fire hose. Doesn't have to be a fire.
Right.
It could be a garden hose.
And
Yeah,
there's so many tools out there too, like Walk Me, and I can't think of the other names of them, but they can do their own self-guided stuff. There's also, recorded training you could give them, but
right.
you still have to set the expectation that they're going to use the tool, right? We've trained you, now you
Well,
use
so
it.
here's my number
Come
one
to us
tip.
with questions, right? And then we'll retrain you if we need to. And here's how you get more training. And then we have to check to see if they actually are using it and if they're using it properly.
So here's my number one tip for CEOs, CROs, and CSOs watching this video. Here's my number one tip. Okay. Number one, don't let your reps or managers report using PowerPoint or Excel.
Okay.
Make them use the tool. All
Right.
these tools have reporting. What report do you use to drive your business?
They have dashboards. They should have, all these tools have dashboards
Yes, they do. And so people will then take a snapshot of their dashboard and put it in
in a
PowerPoint
PowerPoint.
because it takes them, 30 minutes to get this thing looking right. Uh, do not let any of your reps or managers report with PowerPoint or Excel, and you will have
Oh,
you will have an eye opening. If
it's the problem with every CRM that I've seen. The sales leaders are still exporting everything into Excel to make it do what
right,
they want. Now, there are occasions when it's their CRM's set up really well and there's still some sort of a report you need because you need a pivot table or something like that in Excel. But most of the reporting, the standard reporting, should come right out of the tool. And why would you want anyone wasting time taking data from one place to another into a PowerPoint or into an Excel? What a waste of everyone's
well, let's
time.
just talk about dashboard. Where does the term dashboard come from?
Where does it come from, Barry?
Your car.
Oh, true. An airplane, a car.
Okay, well, I think it started with cars. The airplanes came after the cars, but in
That's
any event, if you're driving your car, you don't say, "Wait a minute, let me while I'm driving pull up Excel on my phone so I can see."
how fast they're going.
No, I want to run a pivot table here while I'm driving. Come on, man.
No, no.
Okay, so
Have to be able to
that's my
see
number
dash.
one tip. That's my number one tip. And I said
All
we were
right.
going to come back to coaching
All
because
right.
coaching was number two, process oriented, and then coaching. Here are the four questions we ask for coaching. Do your managers know how to coach? Do they know what to coach? Are they coaching? Is it working? This is why we get paid the big bucks.
Right.
This is
So
what
simple though.
this
It's
is
so
what sales
simple.
wisdom sounds like.
Right. But honestly, I mean, but the first question, do your managers know how to coach? I will tell you that the senior sales leader and the CEO don't know the answer to that question. Well, what do you mean? They
Oh,
manage
they
salespeople.
know the
Well,
answer to that question.
they know that the answer is no, they probably don't
Yeah,
know how to
and you
coach,
want to
but
know how they know?
because they're not
Here's how they know. Uh, the room always gets quiet
quiet, right?
when
And
we
they're
ask
not
this.
getting the results. And that
No, this is how they
points to
know.
it.
The room always gets quiet when we ask this question: Who's coaching the coach?
Right. No one.
No one.
No one. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where I come in a lot of times, honestly, because the CEO will hire me to take a look at what the strategy is going to be, right? To get the sales where they need to be profitably to increase the
Mhm.
valuation. And then we take a look at what is the sales leader doing and if there's a leader of the sales leaders or the CEO is many times the leader of the sales leader, right? In the case of these smaller
Right.
companies that I work with, they're only
Sure.
between 20 and 100 million and they're not going to have that many layers, right?
Right.
So, do you think a CEO knows how to coach a sales leader to coach their salespeople?
No, and
No. Why, how would they, right?
here's where the problem really, in my view, begins. Is they haven't been coached all, but now they are the CSO, the CRO, the sales leader. They're expected to know
Right.
how to coach, and they've never been coached. And so we
Right.
describe it as victims of victims. That nobody's been coached, and everybody keeps talking about coaching.
And honestly, when you ask people, what is the difference between managing and coaching? They don't really know. I'll say, do you coach your salespeople? Well, I have one-to-ones with them. Okay, but that's managing. That's managing. Now, during that one-to-one, you might do some coaching. Tell me about that.
Well, they should separate those too.
Oh, absolutely. But, I'm lucky if I even get them to have a one-to-one on a regular schedule so that the salesperson
Right.
can progress, right? So I think it's a huge issue, the coaching, and you're seeing the breakdown. We've been seeing it for years. And what's interesting to me, Barry, is that I mean, way back in our Miller Hyman days in the early 90s when, we were working together there, we knew that if we ran a Miller Hyman program and everybody got trained and got excited and they loved it and they really wanted to do it, if the leaders didn't coach it, we knew it wouldn't stick.
Right.
And
Right.
that's and
And
before
then it
that,
becomes
the
jargon.
same is true, right? And then it's discarded, right? And then it's flavor of the week. Oh, that Miller Hyman training didn't work, so we better do a different brand of training this year. Well, it
Right.
didn't work because you didn't coach to it. You didn't set the expectation for the leaders and the sellers, and you didn't coach to it, right? Hold people accountable. So that
Well, and
coaching
you
is
mentioned the early
imperative.
90s, and I was there a lot earlier than that. But the thing I used to say is even without coaching and without reinforcement, without anything, you could go back 6 months or 3 years later, and there would still be two terms kicking around that people would be using. One would be economic buyer, and the other would be coach.
Yeah.
And the economic buyer, the role is to give final approval, focus its impact on the bottom line, organization, veto power, uh, final approval, and so on. That's the definition of the economic buyer. But without reinforcement,
Yeah.
people will still mouth the words
And not
economic
know what
buyer,
they mean.
but it will have been covertly redefined as the highest person I can get to.
Right. That's
And
correct.
coach, people will say, yeah, I have a coach. Okay, the coach guides you in the sale, wants your solution for whatever reason. Three criteria: you're credible with the coach is credible with the other buying influences for this sale, and the coach wants your solution for whatever reason. Without reinforcement, 6 years later, go back, say, I have a coach. It will be covertly redefined as anybody who'll talk to me.
Right. They're
That's
giving me
my coach.
information. No,
Hey,
it's so true.
since you have CEOs, I want to trot out these other numbers
Yeah,
because
let's do it.
they're
Let's do
just
it.
wild. We ask, what's the outcome of forecast deals? Okay, we're not talking about revenue plan. Well, I will talk about revenue plan attainment levels 1, 2, and 3. Level 1, this is their 2022 plan. Level 1, 76%. Level 2, 84%. Level 3, 94%. Okay. Outcome of forecast deals. And this is one that to me is always, I don't know. It's been happening so long, I can't even be shocked anymore, but it's still shocking. Is what's the outcome of forecast deals? And when I introduce these numbers, I always say forecast, okay, not pipeline. We're
Right.
talking
But you forecast
forecast.
against, right.
Forecast
Right.
deals, percent one, again, levels 1, 2, and 3, 76%, 84%, 94%.
So if
Big
they were
difference.
at a level 1, they were only getting
We're
76%
getting
of the
three
forecasted
quarters of
deals.
30%. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm lying. I just read the revenue number. Sorry, totally lying.
Okay,
Uh,
rewind.
those were the revenue plan. The one loss, yeah, I thought that was 41%, 46%, and 57%.
Of
Forecast deals were won. So even level 3, it's just over half, 57%.
wow.
Yeah. And the lowest was level 1, 41%, level 2, 46%, level 3, 57%. Here's the killer. This is the killer. No decision. Level 1 and level 2 were both 30%. These are deals that went through the entire sales process to the point, or cycle anyway,
And then
where
came
they're
out with
where
no.
they're forecasting, yeah, this is blood. You can take this one to the bank, whatever, commit. Nearly 1 in 3, 30%.
Did
Well,
not
not 1
close.
in 3, but 3 in 10,
They
nothing,
went to no
nada,
decision.
nada, goose egg, zilch, zip, squat.
Wow.
I could keep doing
It's
zero.
terrible.
No, it's terrible. And
Yeah.
that's the bad news. The good news is, and this will be in our report as well, there are bright spots. In fact, if people, they don't want to wait for the report, they can go see the HBR article. There are things that people are doing that are working. And
All
I'll
right.
go
Well, we
back
got
to,
like 3 minutes. Let's wrap it
okay,
up. What is
process
your
oriented
theory?
process oriented coaching and training on sales and basic sales methodology and technology. Beyond that, introducing technique. Here's an important distinction, and it's one of the things that we've been tracking now for a few years. Is your CRM a system of record, and engagement, or a system of a system of record, a system of engagement, a system of record and engagement, or, we don't use it
Yeah.
or we don't have it. If you're not using it as a system of record and engagement, then it's just, one more thing for reps to check off. Yeah, did that. Yeah, did that.
Yeah. 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 Totally agree.
So I would say in closing minutes, I would invite people to visit our website. We've got a bunch of videos there. If they visit the website, the invite to the survey will pop up. I invite them to take, if they complete the survey, they'll get the report. If this comes out in October, the report will be out. They'll get it right away. So, but more than anything, Alice, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely agreed. All right. We're going to put a lot of this in the show notes. We'll put the link to all the things that Barry mentioned so that everybody can take a look at that, the HBR article, the charts he was talking about, and a link to the survey as well, because I'm sure Barry would like to hear from all of you who are CEOs who also lead sales, which I know is many of you, or get your sales leader to go and take that survey, and then you will get the results as well. So, all right, Barry, it's been terrific. Can't wait to see you again. Have a great day.
Thanks, Alice. Thanks for having me in.
If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.